So what kind of justice ends up happening at the end of all that time?
I don't know.
I don't know either. That's just weird.
But that's why I think we encourage people who, whether in removal proceedings or not, to seek out an attorney, to get advice. And the best case scenario, you're not in removal proceedings and you do meet with an attorney and there is a form of relief so you can get status. So you can avoid ever being, for instance, picked up by ICE and put into removal proceedings. It's best to be proactive just to see if you're eligible for an immigration benefit.
So if you're an immigrant, all your legal stuff is in immigration court?
It depends. It depends on the individual case.
Like you and I get in a bar fight, I don't like your looks, and I'm just like,
oh, no. Just having
to
to do with your immigration
Oh,
status.
okay.
Yeah, sorry
All
for
right.
the confusion.
Well,
yes.
So like domestic violence, that kind of thing, all that stuff is handled in regular court.
Yes.
And
Yes.
does your immigration status have anything to do with that? Does that play into it in any way?
In being victimized, or
In the
being-
regular court proceedings, can somebody say, "Oh, but this person is undocumented, so therefore fair game for being beaten up"?
Not in that context. I have not seen that in that context. I've only seen it in the context where the abuser, the victim called the police on the abuser. He was charged, he was convicted, and later deported. So I can see where that could come into play if the abuser doesn't have status and he's committed a crime of domestic violence and he's deported thereafter.
Oh, so I
could happen.
see how that would be even more complicated. I mean, domestic stuff is complicated enough as it is.
Yeah.
With people going, well, I don't want to,
Yeah.
he's
So it's
really
kind of like
sweet most of the
our
time.
justice system just hands it over to immigration.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's convicted and they don't have status, or they could serve their term and then be deported.
So there's probably a lot of things that don't get reported because people don't want to. It's like, okay, I don't like what you did to me, but I'm not going to try and get you deported for it. You know, you don't deserve that for this.
Yeah, and that's often though a form of control if it is an abusive situation. Another form of control if the abuser does have status, such as if they're a citizen and their spouse is not, they can threaten to call the police or to call immigration, and we see that all the time. It happens quite a lot. The abuser uses immigration status as a threat.
And I don't know how you could work around that. I don't know what you could come up with that would make that not be a viable threat. Because it is.
The best thing we want to do in our communities, especially here where we have a satellite office, is have awareness out about the services we offer and the type of relief there is. So hopefully immigrants can learn more about their rights as well in this country.
Yeah, I can imagine that if you were here without documentation, you would just kind of go, well, I don't have any rights here at all. But you do have some rights.
Definitely.
Just not the ones you want necessarily.
Another thing we notice, of course, immigrants coming here, especially those who have recently arrived, they bring with them their cultural ideas of the justice system. Do they trust in the police? Many of the women I work with are always afraid to call the police because if they called the police in the country where they're from, the police wouldn't do anything and wouldn't take them serious.
Right.
So that also getting used to our customs here and our sense of, justice and respecting others and applying the law. I don't know if it always works here in the U.S., but
it doesn't. It works in a way that we're familiar with, so we know how to deal with it. And that's one thing that sets immigrant people apart from citizens or native-born people, is that the people from the place they just know the shortcuts. They know how to get around. When you're new, you don't know any of that, so you can just be stumbling along. There's all sorts of ways that you can just fall flat on your face without having any idea that what you were doing was wrong or wasn't a good idea or whatever. So that would be really hard.
That's where good organizations such as the Refugee Center, probably CU Immigration Forum, many organizations, those are just examples, can introduce new arriving immigrants to the community, to our laws, to the social and legal services we offer. I feel like that's where good community-based organizations come in and help orient newly arriving and immigrants who've been here for years and just don't know.
Yeah. Well, you don't know. And how do you figure that out? A lot of this stuff just you absorb over time just from living in an area and hearing stories, and you hear how the story turned out, and then you go, okay, it kind of works that way, and then you can apply that to yourself. But if you don't know it, that's hard to do. Very interesting. So when you're explaining legal stuff to someone, what's the hardest part about it for you as a rule?
That's a good question as well. I think it's important to know that all 4 of our attorneys are fluent in Spanish. So a very, very, very large majority of our clients in our intakes are Spanish speakers. So we're having to explain the law in an understandable way in both English and usually in Spanish as well. I tried my best to explain the law in the most understandable way as possible. I often end up drawing diagrams sometimes. There's something called a waiver process. A waiver is there's many waivers in immigration law, waiving a ground of inadmissibility, such as entering without inspection, without legal documents. And for this waiver process, you got to talk about submitting a petition here or going to an interview in consulate in this country. So I kind of just draw a diagram of each step, and I think clients really appreciate that. And with each step, I put the price. I put our legal fee, what we're going to charge for it, and I put immigration's fee, so they can start to sum up how much is this going to cost for me to get my status. I think for me that's probably the most helpful way. Something that we would love to do if we're working towards this is making a short video after someone goes to an intake, or if we accept them as a client. I'm not quite sure the logistics, but some form of video so they can kind of learn more about us, the immigration project, and our process. It's also our process they got to get used to.
That's true. You have your own
and
system.
then we help guide them through the complicated immigration system as well.
Well, just in what you were talking about there, you used several terms like entering without inspection, and there was another one, something about inadmissibility.
Yes.
I mean, those are... I can figure out sort of what that means, but even knowing English, it's not a clear...
That's true.
explanation of what that thing is. It's like a legalistic phrase. So how does that stuff translate to Spanish, say, for example?
Well, many times I don't like to use the word illegal or entering illegally. For one, as an attorney, that doesn't really distinguish really how they entered, because you can entering without inspection could mean you're in the back of a car hiding, but you're still entering the country and you were waved on through.
Right.
So possibly you were admitted. So it can be very complicated. So, and I just don't like the way the term illegal sounds. So I don't use that term. But yes, entering without inspection, those are more legalistic terms. I try not to use those terms so much with my clients, but sometimes I'm sure they come out and I just have to explain what exactly I'm talking about.
Well, what would you say if we were talking about entering out without inspection? What would you translate that as?
I would usually say, how did you, in a normal consultation, I would ask the prospective client how they entered the U.S. Did they enter with documents? Did they pass by an immigration official? Usually the biggest thing, did you enter with any documents, and did you pass by an immigration official at as a designated checkpoint, for instance? And most clients understand exactly what I want to know.
So they already know.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to think of. I'm not looking at you skeptically.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think at the same time as you're talking, like, how many different ways could somebody come here? Okay, you could fly in on a plane, but there's really not a way once you get off the plane to get through the airport without talking to somebody if it's an international flight.
So
right?
most people coming through our airport, for the most part, aren't entering without inspection because, like you said, it's very hard to get through security and customs without being inspected.
And I suppose the same thing would happen with if you came on a ship, a boat, at a regular boat, like a.
If you're not like
cruiser.
hiding,
Yeah. You have to go through. There's a whole. They funnel you through a system, and you have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about driving or walking.
Or maybe swimming.
Swimming.
Those are people normally coming through our land border.
Right.
Mainly the people we work with coming
Right.
from our southern border into the United States. And oftentimes people come without documents, without passing through a designated checkpoint, and there often is some type of guide, as we say in Spanish, coyote, who's leading them, or sometimes leaves them behind, unfortunately, and they have to find their way here.
Well, what I remember when DACA first came out and we were talking to a lot of people is a lot of the people we spoke to didn't have a really clear idea how they got here. They were young enough that they're like, I think we drove. I don't remember. They didn't know where exactly it was, what state they came through. They were very vague on that stuff. And so it made for some interesting conversations like, okay, well, we need to figure some of these things out, but how do you figure it out when you don't know?
Oftentimes we have to end up having to ask the parents, or if the parents don't know, or in another case where just one of our clients who's not a DACA client doesn't know, we just say in and around around 2007. I try to think at least the state they entered through. It's making me much more familiar with the border, even though I've never visited. I should. I'd like to sometime.
It's interesting down there. It's very interesting. It's kind of disturbing in a way. So what do you think of the election coming up here? I know you can't speak officially about this, but
so many of my clients and prospective clients are somewhat worried. I can see why. They're nervous. Even those with status are nervous because they were naturalized citizens, and with all the political rhetoric, I'm not going to mention names that we've heard, they're worried it could be taken away from them because they weren't born in the United States. So we'll see. It's an interesting time, and I don't know if listeners are aware of the Supreme Court has agreed to take up the DAPA, President Obama's executive action that he passed in 2014. There's been a lot of litigation and, let's just say, issues, and we'll have a decision. The Supreme Court will announce their decision in June, hopefully this year, to know if parents of U.S. citizen, undocumented parents of U.S. citizen, legal permanent residents, will be able to apply for this benefit that's similar to DACA that would allow them to have a work permit and protection from deportation, but not legal status. But what's worrisome, even if, let's say, they are allowed to apply for that benefit, what's going to happen with the new president? Because we are not sure who that'll be. Yeah,
well, I remember you were around back then. I think we were talking to DACA people, and I'd have people ask me, like, what do you think? And I would have to just throw up my hands and say, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, you're giving the government all your information, everybody in your family, you're giving them, now they have it on file somewhere.
And another issue I'm coming up with lately are new intakes, people that might qualify for DACA. Of course, we want to move forward and let them get their work permit and their DACA application approved. Of course, they asked me the question, well, what's going to happen if one of the candidates becomes president and he takes it away? And there's oftentimes I don't really know. I just hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but it's in the paperwork. They make no statements to the effect that other than here's what we're offering you, but we can take it away at any time. We can use this information any way we want to. I mean, it's pretty serious stuff that you're signing when you fill that stuff out. I was optimistic about it back then. I don't know that I would tell anybody to sign it now. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
from my experience, I personally haven't heard of anyone applying for DACA and being denied and referred to immigration. I haven't heard of that personally. I don't know if it's happened. Most of the young people we help apply for DACA don't have a criminal history, don't have any background, and there'd be no reason that I would worry that immigration would ever use their undocumented status against them, since they do have no crimes.
Well, now, but
Yeah, at least now I don't
November.
see that.
I
But
don't
it
know.
will be interesting. A lot of people will be on the edge of their seats to see.
a lot of people will be
Yes.
on it. I mean, in all sorts of ways. But yeah, this is a really strange time, and it would be tough to be in your position, I think, because I'm an advocate in a general way for immigrants, and I can go on doing that until they start censoring radio shows or whatever. But you kind of you do the law. You're right in there.
And we try. We're 4 attorneys. We have another employee who helps manage our volunteers and our relationships with our communities. But we also have to be prepared if we do have DAPA or whatever immigration benefit or reform or whatever is going to happen. We have to be prepared because we service a huge area.
Yeah.
And we do have very little help. So we've already worked out a workshop we would have if we have DAPA, kind of like DACA before, the similar type model.
Right.
We're trying to, my coworker is trying to get together something called Community Navigators, reaching out to our communities. I believe one person from Champaign-Urbana went to our Community Navigators, the first training we had about a month ago.
Oh, that's good.
Just having those Community Navigators in place so they're trained in basic areas of immigration law. They can help us with our workshops. They can just help us have that connection to the communities that we serve. So if you're interested,
I'm interested. I just don't know if I have any more time or
yeah,
room
or
in
know
my brain
anyone
for
in the
anything.
area.
I might know somebody. I might.
Yeah.
So is our immigration law as screwed up as I keep telling people it is?
In some areas, immigration law, our laws work good.
Do they?
In some, in many, people become citizens. People are still allowed to petition for their family members. However, there can be certain wait lists for those family members if they're not immediate family members. That can be very, very, very long wait lists, especially if you're from certain countries such as Mexico, where we see a higher demand. The wait is longer. When it comes to immigration court and our asylum offices, there is a very, very huge backlog, and that's a problem. It's hard to imagine someone fleeing for their life, then coming here and applying for asylum, but having to wait years to finally get a decision. And during that meantime, although they would be able to work if they applied for asylum within that year, they would still have this huge amount of time not knowing what's going to happen, and always I'm sure they'd always think, oh, what if I'm deported back to my country where I fear for my life. I can't imagine. That must be very difficult, and our backlogs just increase. I think they increase anxiety. Maybe for some certain cases, it is a good thing. It depends. Maybe they can continue getting their ties to the community. Depends on the case, but at least I'm thinking of those asylum cases. That would be a long time to wait for a decision.
I would think so. Yeah. Well, it seems from talking to you and from listening to what you're saying here that all the money, like for example, comprehensive immigration reform, which started off more or less like it looked like it was going somewhere and then it just died. If they'd taken all the money that they put aside for enforcement in that and put it into hiring new judges and immigration courts and stuff like that, that alone, without changing anything else, would dramatically alter the way the system works. Just by funding the system enough so that it can work.
Maybe creating more of a balance, because of course we still need security, because that's important, of course.
You've got lots of security.
But probably more of a balance. I don't know much about the finances, but definitely we're lacking money and resources with the immigration court system.
That's what I keep hearing. There wouldn't be backlogs if there were enough people and enough the system were up to speed to deal with
reality,
the
really.
Demand.
Yeah.
Then it'd be like, oh, well, you've got this thing. All right, well, put it in. We'll get back to you in a couple weeks, and
Yeah.
Then you could only then would you be able to tell if the current system actually worked at all, because then it would be able to do what it's supposed to do, and everybody would be able to do what they're told. Here's what you do. You do this, then this, and then this happens. All the people who say, well, they should just get in line like everybody else, well, that only works when the line is going somewhere.
In another area of the law, immigration law, where this backlog is extremely bad and difficult for clients, is if the client's been a victim of a certain crime, such as domestic violence, and they apply for a benefit called a U visa. That U visa could be pending for 3 years, just pending, and during the meantime, they won't have the right to work. They don't have the right to work. So a lot of times, clients or victims could go back to their abuser, or because they don't have permission to work. Many of the domestic violence shelters can't house someone for 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're really stuck in a very difficult position. Whereas a couple years ago, the U visa process, you could get your U visa sometimes in a couple months, as opposed to 3 years. They actually, right now, they have a wait list, because the government only allots 10,000 U visas to applicants a year, and that's just filling up, that shows that people are reporting crimes in our country, but also that cap is not not enough people are allotted it. That's created another backlog.
So I guess all of this stuff would be part of an actual
reform.
Immigration reform.
Yeah,
We'd
probably.
Look at all these numbers and go, okay, we need more of this. This has got to be longer.
Yeah.
This has got to be shorter. More money here. Yeah, boy, what a complex. I'm glad I don't have to do that. I don't think I could. It's just too much stuff to hold in my brain. My brain has enough trouble just, tie shoes, eat food.
Yes.
That's just the basics. It's hard for me to do that. Much beyond that, I don't think I could handle it. I don't think I could do what you're doing.
I think this is why we draw so much on the community and volunteers and not a law school, because this work would be very hard because we're 4 attorneys. We don't have a receptionist. We don't have paralegals. So we don't have any other paid support staff. So we rely heavily on volunteers and students.
You should get this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be, you're doing that, right?
Yeah, my major is law. I'm 40.
Oh.
Yeah, see?
Cool, yeah. That might be helpful.
You should talk. You should give her your card. You exchange. He could help out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
There's many ways we could, we need help, many different ways. Not just working with clients, but awareness, presentations, if we have workshops.
Oh, you just need bodies.
Many
a lot
ways
of
you
the
could
time.
help, yes.
Yeah.
Many opportunities to volunteer.
And this is the Immigration Project, is what you're called?
Yeah.
Based in Bloomington?
We're based now in Normal,
Sorry.
Illinois.
Sorry,
Based in Normal, Illinois.
Normal,
Yeah.
yeah. Not Bloomington.
Not Bloomington.
Not that stupid town.
Yeah.
Normal, Illinois. Huh. That's pretty cool. So it sounds like you guys do a lot of stuff, and you do very needed work, and you basically need money. So how do you fundraise? You can't exist just off of what the little amounts that people are giving you.
So we have a few state and private grants. We just had and I don't have the chart. Most of our fees come from our family-based fees,
Yeah.
family petitions. We have a special grant for our victims of domestic violence, so they pay around between $50 and $100, and very limited fee for our services. We just had a fundraiser last week in Champaign. It was really our first fundraiser in Champaign. It was actually in our Bannock Civic Center. I believe it went well. We hope for even a larger turnout next year, but this was a very, very good start. We're very pleased with the turnout
You
and
had
the
it
funds
the
we've
same
raised.
night as something else, didn't you?
I think so. I was told that it was the same night as other events.
Because I was at that other event and going, oh, I wish I could known that.
It's okay. People can always go online and check us out. We have updates. We had an annual report. You can learn a lot more about us, and you can also donate on PayPal on our website.
So
which is
any
great.
rich people listening right now, for example,
Yes.
could
And-
potentially do that?
Yes,
Go to what website is that?
It's www.immigrationproject.org. And an important thing to note, we do use the law. Obviously, we're attorneys. We
Right.
use the current laws that we have to help people, and I just think that's important to note. We're not political activists
Right.
or anything like that. We're just doing the best with the laws we have, trying to serve these very well-deserved communities throughout 85 counties in Illinois. And Champaign County has the largest undocumented population that
Champaign does?
outside of the Chicago area. So it has a very large immigrant population.
Interesting. I wonder why. I mean, what's here?
I don't know, but a lot of our clients are from here. And it is.
Well, we're here
And
too. I mean,
McLean County is another high-density population of immigrants, and then the Peoria area. But really, it's interesting. The more we travel, and we have clients from all over. It's amazing to see the many different countries that are represented in Central and Southern Illinois.
Yeah, we're trying to expand our reach past just the Mexican Central American community, you know, and reach out to some of these other groups that are here. It's just hard because you have to know somebody and
Yeah.
get to know people, and you know, it
There's
takes a
that
long
trust and language and all of that.
time. Well, we're getting very close to the end of our hour here. I forgot to give you my $25 check for our hour consultation.
Oh yeah.
I'll get that to you.
Yeah.
As soon as
$25.
$20.
Immigration project.
That's right. Is there anything you were hoping to talk about that I just didn't neglected to get to?
I'll probably think about it tonight when I'm sleeping. But this is a really great community. I moved here a little over 3 years ago, and I was traveling back and forth to Bloomington. That's where our old office was. We moved.
Right, I know.
And I saw a need here for an office, and I lived here. But I saw a need here, and then I saw a lot of people like CU Immigration Forum, the Y, who really wanted to help.
Yeah.
So you guys have been great partners for us. You've helped us with awareness, with workshops. So it's just a great community to have our first satellite office.
Well, I hope it'll grow.
Me too.
But you need money, funding, rich people.
Yes.
Immigration Project. Write them a check. Send them PayPal. Attend a fundraiser. Do whatever. I'm not telling you to do this, of course. I can't advocate for
Yeah,
you.
if you're interested.
I'm just mentioning that it is something you could do if you wanted to do it, if you wanted to be helpful.